Hey everybody, this is TotalGamerJunkie. I want to welcome you all back to my channel. So, if you remember yesterday, I uploaded a fanfic that I read, and I'm pretty sure I don't need to say what it was called, but in case any of you didn't know, it was called The Only Way. Now, I honestly don't know what order this fiction is categorized in, sorry. But, I just got told I was requested to read this, so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll read it. And so I really don't know what order, but as soon as I find out, I'll find out for you. Because this is the only way now, so I don't know, it's like, it was just confusing. But anyways, this is an entirely different fanfic that I'm going to be reading. This is one I saw years ago, but I never got around to reading it, and it is called The Blue Baron, and it's essentially during the early 20th century, and with Max, she's a fighter pilot, I believe, and there's another fighter pilot called the Blue Baron, who is Chloe Price, and I thought it'd be interesting to read that because I like fanfics where they got characters and they put them in different situations, and there's 3 parts of this, so this is part 1, so I'll leave a link to the page so you people can see it and you can read it for yourselves if you want, rather than see me reading it. So anyways, let's get started with this. So, summary. In the final days of the Great War, ace pilot Maxine Maxwell Caulfield is given a dangerous new mission, one which will bring her face to face with the deadly Blue Baron, Comrade von Priest. Okay, I thought it was Chloe, but all is not quite as it seems, unless Comrade von Priest is Chloe's alias or something like that. Or it could be a different character, I don't know. So, we've got notes here for apologies to all aviators, veterans, and Germans. I don't know if veterans and Germans will be reading this, but, it's just nice to put it there. Like, I'm not saying because you're German you don't read this, but I guess it more applies to veterans, because there aren't many veterans from the wars left. Well, it depends what war the veterans are from. Anyways, let me get started. Lieutenant Caulfield, come in. Max straightened her uniform and stepped into the office. Stood at rigid attention before the old man's desk, trying to look as tall as possible. Sir, she said, a practiced hoarseness in her voice. Sit down, Maxwell. Yes, sir. She sat erect in the chair, looking at him expectantly. You know we haven't seen Von Priest in the air for a while now. Yes, sir. Well, now we know why. Report came in this morning that he's been seen operating at the south end of the front near Switzerland. He's leading a small squadron, really creating a great deal of havoc. We don't honestly know if this is the prelude to something bigger or just a distraction. That's tough country. The mountains, the wind. It is, and he's using that to his advantage. He appears out of the mountains, disappears back into them. We don't know where he's based. We don't know his routes. We don't have adequate air defenses. He's shooting down our planes, strafing our men, bombarding our supplies. I need this to stop, Lieutenant. The old man leaned forward in his chair. You now have one mission and one mission only. You are to intercept and bring down the Blue Baron. Max blinked. Comrade von Priest had shot down more of her fellow pilots than entire wings of elite German aircraft. The last thing she'd seen his... Oh, sorry, I got smudge, I missed my glasses, there we go. The last time she'd seen his signature blue plane, she barely made it back to base alive, limping home with a tattered wing and a jammed rudder. Sir, I'm not sure. You think I should send someone else? If we have a better pilot in the service, I'd like to know it. Max swallowed. No, sir. Alright. He handed her a sheet of papers. Fly down alone. Nobody's to know where you're going. Do your best to blend in with the air detachment. Yeah, it's word detachment. I thought I misread that. Do your best to blend in with the air detachment down there, and hopefully you can take the Baron by surprise. Dismissed. Max saluted, turned on her heel, and strode out. She hadn't planned on this when she joined up. cutting her hair, strapping her chest, deepening her voice. She'd wanted to fly and they'd put her in a plane. Had they really been fooled, or had the British Army, desperate for capable pilots, joined her in the convenient fiction of Maxwell Caulfield? It didn't matter. Her success had sealed her fate. She was going to confront the Baron directly in challenging, unfamiliar terrain. She was going to die over the mountains of eastern France. Oh, okay, so she's disguised herself as a boy to get into, or a man, or whatever, you know, a bloke, or however you want to say it. She's disguised herself, basically, to become a pilot. Max was flying blind. She could barely even see her two wingmen in the dense cloud that surrounded her biplane. Cold and damp, biting at the exposed parts of her face between her goggles and her helmet, she checked her watch. 2 minutes. She angled downwards, descending gently until all at once she was in open air with a clear view of the land below. The mountains were not particularly... son of a bitch. Okay, particularly... fuck me. Why can't I say words? This is just like the time I mispronounced mercilessly. God. The mountains were not particularly high. Fuck it. Nothing like the fearsome Alps farther south. Further south? But it's with an A, so farther south. It's meant to be further, but you know. But they were steep, an endless roll of long, or maybe it is meant to be farther, but you know. Fuck it. But they were steep, an endless roll of long forested ridges and narrow valleys with scattered pastures and farms. It was arduous going on land, or whatever that word is, and a plane could easily dip behind a hill and disappear from sight. Flying below the peaks was dangerous. A miscalculation, a sudden gust of wind, and you could run out of room very fast. Von Priest's pattern so far had been to embrace the danger, sneaking through the hills to emerge without warning above the heads of Allied troops, dispense all of his ordnance, and disappear via a different route. Allied air patrols have kept to middle altitudes with good kept to middle altitudes with good visibility, but also highly visible themselves. When they encountered the Baron, he'd always seemed to see them first, climbing to meet them and either driving them off or shooting them down. Max had taken to higher altitudes and followed the weather, grateful for a spell of overcast days. She concealed herself in the clouds, dropping out periodically to scan the ground, then climbing back into hiding. If she could avoid being seen by the Baron until she was right on top of him, he'd have no way to run or hide, and he'd be at a massive tactical disadvantage. All she had to do was find him. Looking down, she quickly scanned the horizon, then the valleys all around her, counting down as she did so. She would stay visible for no more than 10 seconds. Nothing. She glanced back at her wingman, also looking. No signals from them. She pulled back on her stick, rose easily into the cloud, checked her watch. It had gone on like this for days. A tiresome monotony of steady engine drone in grey fog. The Baron had attacked to the north, to the south, directly along the Swiss border. He was everywhere and nowhere. Max checked her watch. 2 minutes. Descend again. Look around. There, low against the hills, coming through a pass to the northwest, a wing of German biplanes. The leader painted signature blue. Max felt a tingle of adrenaline as her heart began thumping hard in her chest. She had worked for this, had wanted it, and was absolutely terrified of what would happen next. But she had no choice. If not her, then who? She signaled her wingman by wobbling her plane slightly, quickly changed her heading, and rose again into the cloud. She checked her watch. She estimated 3 minutes flying time before she was directly above the Baron. They had even numbers, and her wingman knew what to do. Distract the Baron's own wing, leave the blue plane to her. Their own upgraded SC-5s were faster than the German Fokkers, and her wing was ordered, I thought I missed a word there, and her wing was ordered to retreat immediately if either Max or the Baron went down. The other German planes were targets of no importance, at least not today. She stared at her watch, counted down time. She descended, looking again at her target. There, below, still cruising, hugging the land. She pitched into a steep dive and her wingman followed, coming down high and fast to the near flank of the Germans. Max smiled to herself. This might even work if she was lucky. She tended to be lucky. Oh my god, shit's getting real here. And then she saw her. Instantly, the Baron's wingman left formation, braking left and right as all three planes throttled up and began to climb. The move was designed to draw Max's wing apart, reducing their tactical advantage, and it worked. Max's wingmen spread out, each picking and aiming for their own target. Max stayed focused on her quarry. She closed fast, speeding downward, and just as she closed to fire, I wasn't misreading that. And just as she closed to firing range and reached for the trigger, the Baron banked with sudden ferocity and drove away, toward a looming mountaintop. She gave her no choice but to follow, flying directly at solid ground, suddenly regretting her high airspeed. She grimaced, pulled the throttle back sharply. It would be a dogfight. As they began to dance, the Baron's tactics became clear. He would use the mountain, driving and skimming past peaks and boulders, missing by what seemed like inches before bounding upward again. Turning hard to make an attack on his pursuer, a less confident pilot would not dare follow and would soon find himself in the blue plane's sights. Max was not a less confident pilot. Against her instincts, she followed the Baron in his insanity, finessing flight stick and throttle, engine alternatively docile and roaring, swinging from near stall to gut-twisting dive and back again. The wingmen, I'm having an off day here. Their wingmen disappeared in the distance, Max's own men successfully drawing off the Germans. It seemed that protecting the Baron was not a priority. They must have believed him invincible against a single adversary, as so far he had always been. Max hoped to beat the odds. She stuck to the Baron like glue, trusting that there was nothing his latest model Fokker could do which her plane could not. As far as anybody knew, it was still true, but the equation had changed more than once over the course of the war. Max remembered the first reversal bitterly. Overconfident British and French pilots cut down by new German and Endeavour monoplanes. Before long, they had sensibly returned to biplanes, but they were good ones and gave the Allies quite a fight. As her pursuit continued, the Baron grew even wilder, taking risks, leveling off. He suddenly banked, seeming to hurl himself directly into the mountain. Max sensed a feint and slowed, keeping an even course, and she was right. The Baron reversed his bank, pulling hard away from the mountain, hoping to throw his pursuer off balance. Instead, he crossed the sights of her gun. Max squeezed the trigger, the forward Vickers hammering away in front of her, and she smirked as she saw a small spray of debris from her target, followed immediately by the scent of raw petrol. Now it was only a matter of time. The legendary Blue Baron, scourge of the Allied air forces, hadn't expected to meet a British ace in an anonymous plane out here on the edge of the war, and now, his fuel pouring away, he would go down on the French side of the front. Max eased off the throttle, still following, expecting the Baron to break eastward towards the border. Instead, he pulled up hard, rising into a vertical stall at maximum throttle, then tipping over the backward, falling upside down. A suicide move that would kill his engine and sent his nose suddenly pointing towards Max. Too late. She swore, yanked hard on the stick, her plane lurching as the Baron's twin machine guns rattled, perforating Max's wings, and then, with a bang, her engine locked. Her propellers slamming to a halt, the engine's roar, ever present in years of flying, fell silent, and Max heard something she'd never heard before, the sound of the wind whistling over the fuselage. Or is it fuselage? However you say it. There was a rumor among her fellow pilots that some German aircraft had begun to be fitted with ejector seats and parachutes. As she lost speed and approached a stall which would drop her from the sky like a stone, Max sorely wished the Brits were a little further along with this new technology. She fought the controls, forcing the nose down, trying to maintain enough speed to keep the plane aloft. As she did so, she looked around, desperate for flat ground where she could attempt a landing. Oh no, Max is going down. Oh, let's hope she's alright. Off to one side, the Baron's plane tumbled, spinning wildly. His engine oh so dead, he was dropping fast, essentially in freefall, but as Max watched the plane straighten out and headed for a wide stream bed not far away. Wait, I think I missed a full stop or apostrophe there. Essentially in freefall, but as Max watched the plane straighten out and head... Okay, no, I didn't miss it. It looked like the only place within reach which wasn't covered in trees. Max cursed again. She was going down in the middle of nowhere, and if she survived the landing, the Blue Baron would be waiting for her. She turned her plane, reluctantly gliding after him. She had greater altitude, she realized... Oh, forgot the apostrophe. She had greater... Well, I missed it, didn't forget it. She had greater altitude. She realized she could probably strafe him on the way down and kill him in the cockpit. But that wasn't how she operated. She'd succeeded at her mission. They were still in France, far from the front. One way or another, he was not going to fly for the Germans again. That ought to be enough. She watched as the blue plane, silent, glided into the stream bed, bouncing on the stretch of flat rock, rocking wildly. Missed that word. As it slowed, the lower right wing clipped a stray tree limb and the plane spun right, slamming to a halt against the trees. Almost immediately, a figure lively, whatever that word is, hopped down from the cockpit and disappeared into the forest. Unfortunately for Max, the tail of the Baron's plane was now in her way. Oh, sorry about that. Better mute that there so we don't get those notification noises. Let me start that again. Unfortunately for Max, the tail of the Baron's plane was now in her way, projecting into the limited open space. She'd have to come down earlier, where there was less room, and hoped she could stop before smashing into his plane, which was by now surrounded by spilled fuel. She concentrated, imagining her precise path through the space in front of her. As soon as she cleared the last tall tree, she dropped hard, wrist planting the nose, bounced her landing gear against the ground. She forced the plane down, braking hard. It wasn't enough. She flinched as the two planes collided, delicate wood and fabric structures shredding into a tangled mess around her. Her landing gear collapsed, pitching her propeller and heavy engine down onto the rocky surface below, and Max saw the thing she least wanted to see. Something must have sparked on the stone, because all at once she was surrounded by flames. It was not, in fact, Max's first time in the cockpit of a burning aircraft, highly flammable under normal circumstances. One entire side of her plane was now entwined with the Baron's own fuel-soaked wreck. She didn't have much time, but she knew her flight suit, dense, weatherproof fabric lined with fur, would protect her briefly. She grabbed her satchel of emergency supplies and hurled them away, clear of the flames. Then she awkwardly levered herself up and out, falling the distance to the ground and landing painfully on her back in a pool of burning petrol. Oh, fuck me, that's not good. She scrambled up, the arms, legs, and gloves of her suit now on fire, and dashed a short distance away before dropping again, rolling and stripping off the burning garments and fuel-soaked helmet. Fortunately, the shirt and trousers had been on underneath had not ignited. She crawled away from the conflagration, panting. "Ah," she gasped, rolling from her knees onto her back. "Ah, bugger." A shadow fell across her. Her eyes flicked up to the barrel of an automatic pistol aimed steadily at her head, and behind it, Comrade von Kreis, the Blue Baron himself. So I thought Chloe was the Blue Baron, unless they've done a gender swap or something, but from what I read, it's really so good. Like, really good so far. And tomorrow I'm going to be reading the second chapter of that other Life is Strange fanfic I was reading before, and then after that I'm going to be reading the second one of this. So anyways, that's it for this first chapter. I'll leave a link in the description so you can see all the fanfic, all the other ones, because there's 3 parts of this. So I'll let you all read those by yourself if you want, by leaving the link in the description below, rather than wait for me to read them. Anyways, let me know if you enjoyed this fanfic below, and I'll see you in the next video I make. This is TotalGamerJunkie, signing off.